Hi, Ashley. Thank you for being here today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Of course. Congratulations on your book.
Thank you.
For those of us who might not have read it yet, she's going to read an excerpt from it so that we can all get familiar with what we're talking about today. So whenever you are ready, take it away.
All right. The Girl in the Mirror. I don't know when the first GPS system came out, but I do know that growing up, I felt pretty friggin' lost most of the time. While I eventually found my way to Los Angeles to become the actress and writer I am today, it hasn't always been easy. In fact, as a teenager, I related best to my hamster, Mir, as he jumped on his little wheel in his cage and ran for hours, going nowhere. I remember looking at myself back then. The girl in the mirror never seemed good enough. I wasn't normal like the other girls who wore preppy clothes and played soccer. I was overweight with a ball of frizzy hair and a bad case of acne. I liked bugs, playing in the dirt with my horses, and failed pretty much every math class, 3 times. Instead of friends, I had stuffed animals, books, and Hermie, a conveniently symbolic hermit crab. Every morning, I'd wake up and try to think of ways to escape the stinging pain I felt when people gawked at me. Whether it was my secret crush telling me I had more jelly rolls than a Krispy Kreme, my computer teacher humiliating me in front of the class after I accidentally threw up my anxiety/lunch on the keyboard, or the real-life mean girls throwing my stuffed animals into the woods, I felt as though I couldn't get through the day unscathed. This torment went on from 8 to 11 years old, and as the feelings of self-hatred escalated with each humiliating experience, I started to shut down. I would come home after school every day and lock myself in my preteen pink and lime green colored room. Moseying into the kitchen, stepping over 4 dogs and a constantly high-strung mother, I tried to find some comfort in a loaf of Sarasota, Florida's best French, unfreshly baked bread and butter. I allowed myself to fall down the dark path my bullies were pushing me towards. The way everyone at school treated me became this sort of twisted proof of all the negative thoughts I had about myself. I took one last look at that girl in the mirror, at the girl who was never good enough, and told her goodbye. During the year that followed, something inside me went cold. I stopped crying because I thought it made me weak. I stopped bringing stuffed animals in my backpack because I stopped bringing stuffed animals in my backpack because I thought it made me look weird. I starved myself because I thought my body was disgusting. And in the process, I became the bully. If I was hurting inside, I'd criticize someone else. If I wanted something, I'd manipulate everyone around me until I got it. When I felt wronged by the mean girls who threw lunch trays at me, I'd go to their lockers and squeeze 15 packets of mayo inside to rot in the Florida heat as they finished their lunch. I looked strong on the outside, but I was more miserable than ever on the inside. I thought I liked myself, but I was just playing a misguided game to gain control of my life. I was praised for being skeleton skinny, dressing like the masses, and caking on makeup. But this person I had become and the life I had wasn't real, because everything I had built it on was fake. Over time, this buildup reached a breaking point, and one day, out of nowhere, I found myself looking into the purple magnetic mirror of my newly preppy locker. The girl staring back at me was still the same, but in some way, more complicated. She was hidden behind more layers of shame and false identity than ever before. The minute the bell rang for the next class, I snapped out of it, but I couldn't shake the feeling, or rather the reality, that I had no idea who I was anymore. Oddly enough, what helped next was being able to take a break from myself entirely. It was that superpower, the ability to escape who I was and explore any character I chose, that initially attracted me to the idea of becoming an actress. While my first role as a spandex-clad singing eel wasn't my #1 choice of identity theft, AKA it was a role forced upon me in a school opera, it did lead me to discover what made me truly happy. I remember being backstage one night, applying makeup in a dusty mirror and thinking to myself, I've never been happier than I am right now in this moment about to perform on stage. I eventually decided to sign up for a Florida-based competition called Talent Rocks. When I got there, I looked around at the 3,000 divas in diapers and singing contortionists standing in line with me and thought, that's a lot of people who want to do exactly what I want to do. I was incredibly intimidated, and before I knew it, the typical insecurities took over. There's no way I'm going to win this competition, I said to myself. Rather than withdraw, I thought of how embarrassing it would be to go back home and hide in my room again. So I stayed, and while my Tyra-inspired runway pose didn't win me top honors, I knew I couldn't give up after my first try. After convincing my parents that a career as an actress was a good idea, I set my sights on LA. What was supposed to be a simple 2-week trip turned out to be one complicated whole new life. After a few meetings and getting a manager on board, I mapped out my own perceived path and just gunned it. I became a union worker at 14, and my first big break was a pilot on ABC called American Family. But being a Hollywood newbie, I had to go through a really long casting process first. I started auditioning in front of the casting director's assistant, then the casting director, then the producers, then the director, and finally, I did a screen test in front of the network execs. A half hour before the screen test started, I made my way through the lot into the lobby of the studio in a grandiose setting, complete with marble pillars and 40-foot sculptures. Little old me, well, little young me, I was 14, sat in an awkwardly spacious waiting area in a stiff, oversized leather chair directly across from the two girls I'd be competing against for the role. One girl in the neighboring leather chair was drop-dead gorgeous and knew it. The other girl was already famous and knew it. And just when I couldn't be more intimidated, it was my turn to test. I did the scene and looked around for laughs, but the men in suits just wore their poker faces. Of course, shortly after I'd finished, the already famous girl came out laughing to herself. She walked with such absolute confidence, commanding the huge lobby, an impressive feat for any pubescent teenager, that I was sure she'd been given the role in the room. While she stuck around to talk to the casting director, I joined Miss Drop Dead Gorgeous on the longest elevator ride ever. Ding, 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 ding. A million floors or so later, we reached the parking garage. A disingenuous and forced smile crossed her face. "Good luck," she said, breaking the uncomfortable silence. In more silence, my mother and I rode home in our pre-owned Saturn SUV. As soon as I got home, I went straight to the kitchen. I started to pick out some comfort food, my old guilty pleasure of bread and butter, when my phone rang. It was the call. I picked up my bedazzled flip phone, and before I could even say hello, my manager screamed emphatically, "You got it!" I was ecstatic. As I jumped up and down in my kitchen on the floors in a crappy apartment, I knew that this was the beginning of a new life, a new me, a new everything. This new life seemed like the perfect happy ending. Time went by, and before I knew it, I had a successful acting career, friends, and even a boyfriend. But it still wasn't enough. I wanted to be the best at everything. When I saw other actors doing cooler projects than I was, it reminded me of my old life when I didn't think I was good enough. I was scared all the time, as if someone was going to discover the significantly less appealing version of me, just Ashley from Sarasota. After 3 years in LA, that fear really started taking its toll. Tired and depressed and desperately trying to control the sinking fear that the girl in the mirror was going to come out and ruin it all for me, I let that fear and darkness escalate with each day. I willingly altered who I was in whatever way I had to in order to be exactly what everyone else wanted me to be. This insidious trial and error eventually came to a head when I found myself sitting in my room after another breakup with another boyfriend and another movie role that I didn't get. And I realized something. Up until that moment, my journey to this happy ending had been nothing more than the crescendo of old scars, and I was right back to square one. I hadn't moved on from my past. I'd just been running from it. Once again, letting myself go down that familiar dark place. I hadn't changed at all. So, 3,000 miles from Florida, I realized I had lost myself yet again because I had never fully found myself to begin with. So I set out to get it together, for real this time. And it wasn't easy. Occasionally there would be a specialized book to help me, like the comfort I found in various paperbacks about acne cures, but I never had any clarity on the important things, like how to live my life without being a slave to my own self-doubt. Sometimes well-meaning friends would offer me advice, but it always turned into a mass of conflicting do's and don'ts. I'd pick up a magazine that promised a cover star who was finally opening up about her insecurities, but I'd finish it only knowing what she ordered for lunch. All I wanted was someone to give me honest advice without the bubblegum bullcrap. Those magazines, books, and chain emails made me feel like a first-generation Siri was guiding me through life with the language settings on Elfin. Then I realized the only surefire way to work out a path for my life was if I worked on myself, my real self. I looked at the girl in the mirror, thinking about her past, and I knew I wanted something better for her future. She wasn't broken. She was just human. I was just human. While I wasn't perfect, I knew I didn't have to miss out on life any longer. I no longer had to hate myself or change myself, nor did I have to be anything less than the person I wanted and deserved to be. The truth is, I can't ignore the past, and I can't just hope for a better future. I needed to, and still do, work on the little things each day in order to impact my life in a big way. Once I knew who I was at the core, I had the tools to guide myself from the inside toward being the best I can on the outside. This inspired and required me to design some tools and tricks to help myself live every day the best I can. Each one of my tried and true methods reflects this idea of creating simplicity out of our complex lives, unique paths, and individual challenges, while digging deeper than the surface. Today, with my own methods and great mentors around me, I can be the best and truest version of myself. I no longer need GPS to search for happiness, because the power to find that happiness lies within myself. From the deepest self-acceptance to a simple, customized daily routine and plan, I feel at peace knowing my outside is a reflection of my truth on the inside. Now I can say that I love myself for who I am, the girl in the mirror. I am who I am and where I am meant to be, simply because that is where I am in this moment. I'll never regret the past, because who I was then helped me evolve into exactly who I am today, and gives me the ability to share with you, real girls just like me, how I was able to start getting it together for good, really.
Thank you, Ashley, for sharing your story. I think everybody can probably relate to feeling like an outsider at some point, and it's great to hear that you found a positive place through all of that. You're very candid in the book about having eating disorders from a young age. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, it started around 7 with overeating. I was a little bit chunky as a kid, and I was feeding my feelings. It was the only thing I could control, and in a very symbolic way, a literal way, I was trying to fill a void with food. And, eventually I got made fun of for that too. And I decided to hate food because clearly I wasn't the problem, the food was. And so I ended up delving into anorexia. And I brought that with me to LA, and I was praised for being that skinny. I mean, I would say in the last couple years, we're coming into a culture where, real bodies are being celebrated and accepted and expected, really. And that's an exciting thing to see. But back then, that wasn't the case. And I had no idea how to live with it, no idea how to live without it. And eventually that was cutting me off from so many things in my social life, and I ended up getting another type of eating disorder, and it ruined my life and it ruined my health. And I had to find a way to be okay with myself on the inside, to feel like if I have an emotion, I can address it in a, I'm not going to say a normal way, because talking to my cat may not be normal. But different coping mechanisms, and really getting to the root of, like, it's not an image thing for me. It's a, I mean, that's the first layer of it, is like an image thing, but it's really, it's a feeling like you can't control anything, and wanting to just have some sort of grasp on this idea that you can be perfect. And you can be perfect for yourself, but not for anybody else. And that's what's important.
You talk about the pressures of Hollywood and moving to LA and fitting in. Was there a turning point when you decided that you really kind of needed to get help and change? And was there like a kind of a wake-up call moment or anything?
Yeah, I think it just happened when I was feeling really really dizzy one night, and I didn't quite know what to do, so I went to bed, and I woke up. I was feeling even worse, and I went to my doctor, and they gave me like a sugar shot or whatever, because my blood sugar was really low, and he kind of told me, like, you have a problem. You can have a heart attack from this. You can lose all your teeth, this and that. And even that wasn't really enough. I was like, okay, yeah. In my head, I was like, yeah, I'll do it less. Being told, like, I could die 10 years before I should still didn't stop me. And eventually just got to the point where I just started talking to people about it. I started being honest and started opening up and really making a change at this vague concept that I'm still struggling with, called balance. It's very weird to me. And I worked with some professionals on it, and it's a daily thing. I'll always be, in recovery from an eating disorder. You still have those thoughts, but it's a matter of what you do with them and how you counteract them. Like, if I have a negative thought, and this applies to anything, by the way, if you have a negative thought, and I actually talk about this in my book, How to Not Be Your Own Worst Hater. If you say something like, oh, I suck at math. If you say that, like, in a group of people, depending on who you're with, you can say it out loud. But I would generally say to do this in your head is to say, list 3 things you're really great at. And later on, I don't want to get better at math, but, like, if you wanted to get better at something you weren't, you could make a plan to, like, get better at it, like hire a tutor. It's about being proactive and being positive. Don't just, like, be the butt of your own joke.
You've overcome a lot. What is your own inspirational motto or mantra, or something that kind of keeps you going when you do maybe get negative or are questioning things? Is there anything specifically that you think of?
All I am is love. I think all we are is love. It sounds cheesy, but I've been in some really dark places in life, and I'm trying not to get emotional, but I realize that that's all we are as people, and that's all the different emotions that come with that. It all stems from that. So all I am is love. That seems to work.
A good one to remember. Shifting gears a little bit, we took a look at a clip from Awkward. What's been your favorite part of being on the show and playing your character?
Oh man. Well, employment.
Paycheck, money, income.
Yeah. I would say my favorite part about it is it's such a unique opportunity to be the female lead on a show on a network that allows you to really like be a little bit more edgy, be more truthful, and you know, I love that, and having this character go through so many different phases. It's such a rare thing, and also our shooting schedule for anyone who's watching who wants to hire me is really short, so I'm pretty available most of the time. But yeah, it's like it's tough. We shoot 4 episodes. We shoot 1 episode in 4 days, which is really quick. That's like 9 or 10 pages a day. I've had the opportunity to direct. I've directed 2 of those. Directing is something I'm very passionate about. It got me into writing, not just with books, but like I've always written poetry, and I've written a few features, and you know, I want to do everything. Like when I think of this industry, I feel like a kid in a candy store. I just want it all. I want to do it all. But directing has definitely been one of my favorite parts of being on the show. It's been an incredible experience.
So you're an actress, a director, an author, also a Mensa member, I read. Any other secret talents that we don't know about you? Singing, dancing, good at games? I don't know.
Well, I'm a good singer. I mean, I just did I'm sure it'll be online at some point. I just reprised my breakout role as a singing eel. And I did it with the exact lack of talent that I had at that point, too, because I had to learn. You all have to learn. You know, I guess some people are born with it, some people aren't. I guess you could say I was born with like a vague idea of it. But it's a craft, and thankfully I've improved since then. So that'll be on MTV at some point. But I'm a good singer. I do my own makeup for the most part. Honestly, I love doing makeup. I mean, that's kind of hard to narrow down because like I have experts in every section in this book, right? But I'm very organized. I can organize anything. I reupholstered all my chairs. I painted my kitchen tables. I reupholstered the chairs, reupholstered my couch. I put in my own chandelier. I replaced the doorknob.
You're holding out on us. You have like home improvement over here. You could host
yeah, I'm very handy. I'm really good with well, we can talk about things I'm like inept at. Grocery shopping. That's bad. I always forget something and I always go hungry, which is so dumb. I actually have to buy like 2 packs of cheese sticks because I'll eat the entire one on the way home. So I have to like get the light like Weight Watcher ones for the way home and then like the other ones for later. But yeah, I'm not good at jumping high. I don't know why. That was the end of my ballet career. Couldn't jump high enough. Not even on a trampoline.
Well, luckily, a lot of your other careers have worked out well for you.
Yeah.
So we're going to open it up to the audience. If anybody has any questions for Ashley, just put your hand up and we'll give you the microphone. I think we have one in the front over here.
Thanks so much for being here and for your honesty. It's fantastic. My family actually lives in Sarasota. They have a wonderful growing art scene there, and I'm curious, do you still have any connections with anybody down there in the entertainment industry? I know there's a lot of cool things going on in Sarasota. So.
Well, anyone in the market to buy a home in Sarasota should contact Scott Rickards at Remax. That's my dad. He's the best. I love real estate. But yeah, no, they have a great growing art scene. That's where I mean, what other school would have a mandatory school opera other than like a very tiny Montessori school in Sarasota, Florida? I mean, there's the Oslo. I mean, we get the original cast of Broadway shows down there, and it's I haven't been back in a while. I imagine if I did, I'd be a superstar, but which kind of makes me want to go there now. It could be good for my ego, but yeah, it's got a great growing art scene. I'm sorry, what was your original question? I answered it? Okay, cool. Again, that's Scott Rickards at Remax,
Nice
Sarasota,
plug
Florida.
for your dad. Any other audience questions for Ashley? She's also going to be signing her book afterwards, so make sure to get a copy, and she'll sign it for you with her autograph.
So the book talks about a lot of your eating disorder. What else does the book touch on in regards to just life in general?
Well, I am in Mensa, which means your IQ is in the top. I think it's 0.2% of the population or something, which isn't as great as it sounds, because high IQ individuals are more likely to end up in jail, low-income jobs, and zero friends. But like, good news, I'm not a full like purebred genius because I have LD and ADD, and I think they're actually trying to change it to learning different, like instead of learning disabled. But the way that my brain works has always been incredibly different than, I guess, the general population does. And I had the exciting experience of having to learn how to think like most people, but also gut reactions to thinking so far out of the box that I'm like already unpacked and like moving the box into the U-Haul van far, if that made sense. It did here. But yeah, that's really, really helped me creatively to be able to think, think in pictures and be able to sort of have ideas that are different. And the ADD is just great for multitasking. I mean, I'm like diagnosed awesome at multitasking, basically. So there's that's in the book, which I hadn't really talked about, but it's not a big deal. Like, you wouldn't know it. Well, if you would, don't tell me. But it's really like, I think I'm lucky. I really do. And so that's cool. That means I probably won't end up in jail, and I'll probably have some friends. And then, I try to keep the romance section pretty open. The whole book is pretty gender neutral, but it briefly, I believe, in a sentence, talk about my trip down the seafood aisle, if you know what I mean.
Wait, elaborate. I don't know if I heard you correctly.
I dated a girl.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to make sure I was understanding
Yeah,
the gist of it.
I was trying to be chill about it, but you guys haven't heard that before? Anyway, I was young and like, I don't know. I don't want anyone to think that I'm writing this book, and I didn't want it to seem like I'm writing to girls telling them that they are looking for a Prince Charming. They can be looking for their Sleeping Beauty. They can be looking for their princess, and boys can be looking for their king,
Good stuff. I think we have another question. Go ahead.
Hi. I was just wondering if you had any acting training or what the process is for your creativity, like for writing and for acting.
Yeah, I've had I feel like I've been to every, like if LA acting coaches were dishes at a restaurant, I did the tasting menu, and I've tried every one, and I took what worked for me. I tried everything. I tried it at least twice. I tried one thing that I felt very uncomfortable doing, and the feedback in that audition was she is not featurable. Not as in she's not feature film material. She is not featurable. So I didn't do that again. But I took what worked, and I learned. And really, I haven't been to a class or to anything in a long, long time. I started doing something recently, which is kind of interesting, where I'll run lines with people who aren't in the industry, normal, everyday people. Like my friends. I don't just go like to the 7-Eleven. I was like, hey, Rando, come up to my apartment. Let's run some lines. Because that could mean so many bad things. But it's really interesting to hear feedback on my performance from just an untrained eye. Like it's been a very, very cool. It's been very cool to do that. Yeah, that's sort of my advice, and I do know I've learning how to memorize things. The thing with LD is they say like you'll never be able to learn a language, you'll never be able to memorize, and they said something else, I don't remember, but I did it. I memorize my lines the day of in my makeup trailer. I memorized about 10 pages of lines, it's word perfect. And then that's every day, so they lied to me there. And I at one point was fluent in Polish, and I learned Russian for a role. I didn't end up getting the role, but I learned it anyway. And I can speak a little Ukrainian. But there's not a lot of places in LA to practice those, so don't ask me to like have a conversation with you, because it's like kind of limited at this point. So.
All right, I think we're about out of time, but Ashley is going to be signing copies of her book, A Real Guide to Really Getting It Together Once and for All, really, which is such a tongue twister to say. But thank you so much for being here and for sharing your story and for all your questions and tuning in. Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody.
guys.